Hey, hi there. My name is Sajid Joseph, and welcome to the Zion City YouTube channel. As you can already see, that today's episode is going to be a special episode. Special episode because I have my lovely wife, Jane Joseph, Mrs. Jane Joseph, joining us on this video. So let me just quickly set the context why I have Jane on this video. Number one is because I think going forward we're going to do more videos together. Jane and I talking about different things, different topics that's on our heart, and she might do some single videos as well. So I wanted to introduce you all to Jane so that you know her and know her story. The second reason why I wanted to bring Jane, especially for this episode, is because apart from being a lovely wife and a great mother to my children, I would also say that she's to me she is a great woman, and she might not want me to say that, but yeah, I mean she's a great woman because of the life that she leads as my wife and as a mother to my children, and also because of something else, and that something else is the way she handles her life, the ups and downs that she's been going through in the last couple of years. I think maybe 10 to 11 years she's been suffering from some illness, and I'll let her share her story. But last year has been the toughest of all. Toughest because she was so ill that we had to take her to the hospital, and she went through a surgery called Ileostomy, and we'll share what that is. And but through these last couple of months, so I think it was March of 2021 that you had the surgery.
No, the surgery was June.
June is when she had the so March actually she started developing issues with her tummy, and then we were visiting a lot of doctors, and then June is when she was admitted, and she went through the surgery, and she had almost lost like more than half of the weight, she was skin and bones. But in the last couple of months, I've seen her recover, and recover not just physically, but I've also seen her recover mentally, emotionally, just come out even more stronger. And now that she is not completely out, there are a couple of more surgeries that we will have to do in the days to come. But I feel like the way she's dealt with it is so inspiring. Even for me as a husband who's watching her day in and day out. The way she copes up, and also not just kind of giving into the pain and suffering and giving into the the sorrow, but coming out of that and also contributing and influencing others, and even not just dwelling in that, but being able to be a blessing to so many women and so many people in the community, in our family. So that's really encouraging, and I wanted her to share that story with you all, and I think it's really it's going to encourage you, inspire you. So keep in mind this video is going to be a long video. While we were coming to this place, I told Jane that don't look at the time, and don't think too much about what is right, what is wrong that you're sharing. Just go ahead, share your heart. We have enough time, so it's going to be a long video, but I am sure that this is definitely something that will encourage you guys, and I want you to hear her story, so that later when she shares other things, you know who Jane is and you know where she comes from. So with that, let me just give the mic to Jane, and I'll ask her to maybe briefly share her story on how she's been in this journey of pain and suffering and illness and surgery, and maybe in between I'll ask a couple of questions to get more clarification and see where it goes from here. Okay, cool.
Thank you, Mr. Sajid Joseph. It's funny how my husband tells me that he draws inspiration from me, but it's actually the other way around. He inspires me every day. I really look up to him, and he's a role model for me. So I think it's a good thing. We admire each other. So my story, let me start from the beginning so that you understand the context better. Growing up as a kid, if you had to ask my parents whether I was a healthy child, they would say relatively yes. Overall, like I was very active in extracurricular activities of sports and music and singing and whatever else you could name. I was always really active, but yes, I was a very poor eater, very very fussy, a very slow eater. I would take a really long time to finish my meal, and anything, even the most delicious things that my mom would prepare and bring in front of me, I had always something to complain about. So it's not something I'm ashamed about, but yeah, that's how I was growing up. Now, when I was around 11, it was, I think, 11 or 12, I had this really minor surgery operation for something called as a ganglion. That was an overgrowth right here on my near my wrist, but that had to be removed. But other than that, there was nothing you would say, look at me and say anything was wrong. I was very, very active, like I said. But it was when I turned 17 that my parents started noticing I had a lot of issues eating, and that was not just slow eating, but I would struggle to swallow my food, and even keep it down. So there were a lot of times that I would just kind of rush to the bathroom and to the toilet and just throw up after I finished my meal. At first, we thought it was just maybe stress or some minor issues, nothing concerning. But my parents noticed that it was just not getting better; it was only getting worse. We tried everything from homeopathy, Ayurvedic, and allopathy, and all of that, but the problem kept persisting. It would get particularly frustrating and embarrassing when we would go out, to a restaurant, whether it was a public setting, friend's home or whatever, and in the middle of the meal I had to excuse myself and just get up and throw out whatever I've eaten and then come back again. And this would happen not just once but 2 or 3 times. So it was not just frustrating, but it was also very embarrassing for me and very upsetting. But I thought, okay, this is something that I just have to live with. And we thought it was, there was no matter whatever we tried, my parents, whatever medicines and doctors we could lay hold of, we tried everything, but nothing really helped. And things were just moving on along. There were bad days, but there was not so bad days. But it was when I turned 22, around 22, 23, that it became really, really bad, to the point where I couldn't even swallow water. It was hard for me to even drink anything. And that's when we got really concerned. And by God's grace, we finally found a doctor who could understand what I was going through. And he said that he was able to diagnose my condition. It was called acute cardia. It's a very rare disease that wherein the nerves of the food pipe, namely the esophagus, is damaged to the point where the esophagus cannot really squeeze food through the stomach. And it's just a normal immunity system response of normality. So there was nothing that could be done about it except that. So the doctor said that I'll have to go through a laparoscopic operation, and after which I could maybe eat for a while, but this could be an illness that could last for years, or even lifetime. And he mentioned that there would be a lot of changes, lifestyle changes and all of that. But anyway, I went through that surgery, and after post-surgery, I felt okay, things were getting back to normal again. I could start eating. I gained weight. We got married to the man of my dreams. We had 2 beautiful boys. I gave birth to 2 beautiful boys, and it was good.
Yeah.
Up till, again, this was another 5-6 years into, I think Amazing, our younger boy, was around 2 years old when, again, I started experiencing a lot of issues eating. And this time it was not swallowing my food, but I noticed that the food that I would eat, anything that I would eat, it wouldn't digest. It wouldn't agree with me. My tummy would bloat up. I would constantly, I experienced severe constipation, abdominal pain, and nausea, vomiting. And at first, like the gastroenterologists that we consulted, mostly all of them were like, oh, it's just, acidity issues or gastric issues. But we noticed that it was more than that, because over a period of next 2 years or so, it just got the frequency of this bloating and pain and vomiting and all of that was just growing and growing and growing. And we went to several doctors, and all of them, I think most of them, they would just give us vague answers, and they had really they didn't have much explanation. They couldn't understand themselves what was going on. And we thought we ran out of options completely until my mother-in-law suggested this hospital in Kerala that was, specialized in many things, and there were good doctors, and we thought, okay, let's just give it one last try. And we went there, and we did find a really good team of doctors who studied my case for over a period of 10 to 12 days and carried out various investigations and tests and all of that. And they finally were able to conclude that the condition that I had was, again, a very rare condition called a pseudo-obstruction of the intestine, wherein the ability of the intestine to push food through was weakened. The muscles and nerves were really weak, because of which, whatever I would eat would just get accumulated on one side of my intestine and not pass through. So, which was another reason why, I constantly kept getting constipated and experienced all that pain. But what they really felt bad about too was there was, again, no cure for this. They said very clearly, this is a chronic illness and something that I had to just live with. And of course, they suggested change in lifestyle and diet, and that I had to take enema a couple of times a week. So for us, this was just a new reality that we had to accept, and it wasn't an easy one, but we thought, we have each other, we have a great family, we have God. I think one thing I would say that kind of pulled us through, even through those years, was I would be in and out of hospitals endless number of times. That was almost my second home, a lot of times. And there were seasons where I would be doing well, really healthy and strong, and then there were seasons where I would just be in a really, really bad place. So it was just something that we kind of thought, okay, we're just going to cope up with this and find strength in God and community and family, and everything was moving on. And
was there any time that you lost hope? I know it was tough for you, in and out, because when you think about your future, when you got the news that, okay, this is something that's going to stay with you for a long period of time, maybe all your life, how did you cope up with that? What was it that kept telling, because just to carry something like this all your life is terrible, right? Mm-hmm. So what kept you going during those times?
10 years.
The initial time when you discovered that, okay, there's some new disease called the pseudo-obstruction of the intestine,
Mm-hmm.
How did you cope up with that?
It was definitely not good news to me or for you or any of us. It was not good news at all. But, like someone said, life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. because
good.
it can, yeah, things can make you either, hardships and trials can either make you bitter or better. And I've seen, like, I think it definitely hit me hard. It was not easy, and I was very much, I was like, the first initial few days was very, very upsetting, very discouraging. But I think, God just reminded me about the number of times before that that He had always brought me through. And also, I think I just have to mention this, that seeing my mother, like, she was someone who's been through a lot of, like, I don't think there's any part of her body that's not been, like, it's been touched. It's just, she's gone through a lot of suffering and pain. And I've seen, like, how she has been, like, really strong, and how she would persevere through it all, and taking not just care of us, but working and doing all these different things. And I think my parents instilled this thing in both me and my brother of, like, no matter what happens, nothing happens to us by chance, and there's always a purpose for the suffering and pain that you go through. There's a bigger purpose that God has, a bigger plan. So for me, in that moment,
so sorry, I'm just thinking, but I like what you said, that when life is like 10% is what happens to you, and 90% is how you react. And again, like, I want to just kind of highlight and just say that what we went through is a very unique thing, but we all go through life, that suffering, pain. Sometimes it is physical, but oftentimes it's also mental, it's also emotional. People go through. So I just want to highlight the point that, like, no one can escape this. Like, we all are going through it. So like how she said, 10% is what we go through it. We all go through it because of the way we are brought up and all that. So admitting that is important. Like, physical thing, though, we have to admit, because that's happening to me. But there are mental struggles, emotional struggles that we go through, and oftentimes when we don't admit it, that itself doesn't help, because when you don't admit, you don't know how to respond to it and come out of it. So I just want to highlight that our story is unique, but we all go through some things, but the way we react, the way we respond to that is what matters,
because you can, like, live in denial, pretend like that's not even there or exist, or either, like, you can get really angry about it. And I know that, like, I've seen, up to, like, how it has broken and crushed and destroyed. That anger and bitterness can really crush you and destroy you. But yeah, so like you said, I think to just kind of acknowledge that, okay, this pain is there, this sickness is something that I have to not embrace, but in the sense that just be grateful for what I have, and unconditionally accept what I don't have. And just not like, okay, I wish my life was like this, I wish this doesn't happen to me. Did I have those questions? Yes, I did. But it's like, okay, God, I felt a lot of time God asking me, like, this is what I have given you, what can you do with it? Because I know that I could come to a place of always regretting why things didn't turn out the way it did, and this or that. But when I would look around and see that I have an amazing husband, and he's given me children, a family, a community, and all of those things that a lot of people take for granted, I think it's just kind of brought me to a place of, like, really thankfulness rather than complain. And also and I would see, like, while I was in that hospital, I saw the amount of, like, I felt like my problem was really big, but I saw people around who were drowning in misery, in pain, and like, and that too, doing it alone. Like, there was one person, in that hospital room. I remember in Kerala, the hospital, when the doctors diagnosed my condition, And that person was by himself. He didn't have anyone. He would groan and cry, and the nurses would come and ask, like, where's your kids, where's your wife? And he was like, no, I don't know. He was just going through all that all by himself, and he had I think an amputated leg. So I know, I could see that there are people in worse situations and worse circumstances than I was, and actually, there's a lot for me to be grateful for.
I think that's a good point. So just sticking to your story, as you were just sharing, that was a tough time for us, because we were in and out of hospital, and then finally we went to this hospital in Kerala where the doctors told us that, okay, they gave a name to the sickness that she's going through, pseudo obstruction of the intestine. And just to add to that story, I think then there was like a couple of years that we were trying to cope up with life, and on and off she would be in the bed, not being able to eat food, and then we would take her to the hospital, and then the stomach would get jammed, and then we had to take her to the hospital and get her kind of clean her body system, and then that went on for
10 years.
10 years, I think. 8 to 10 years.
10 years,
you went through it, and then what happened? I think you can maybe continue from there, where we met this new gastroenterologist when things became worse, and he gave medications and seemed like things were getting better, right? How was that? What was going on?
I think, and that was during the pandemic, ironically, in the year 2020. That was, for me, by far the best year health-wise. I was doing really well. I gained a lot of weight. I was in a really good place. So we thought okay, we're in the best of hands. I wasn't even under medication, for quite some time. But I think March of 2021, last year, just before things spiraled out of control, I noticed that my stomach had again started getting bloated up. And what I usually would do would take some home remedies. I would be careful I wouldn't eat anything much except just stay on liquids, and just till things settle down. It usually would. And I thought, okay, this is, I knew by now how I need to just kind of, I thought I had figured it out. But really did not. Nothing seemed to work, and everything spiraled out of control. It was just, I was in chronic pain. I felt like there was this knife being stabbed inside of me. I couldn't move. I couldn't get up. I couldn't even speak or say anything. I couldn't. And Saju and my parents were there home at that time too. They could see how pale I was becoming, and I felt like my system was just shutting down inside. I felt like I was just blanking out, and everything was blacking out. And I kind of wondered whether, if I'm going to go to the hospital, I know I will, I don't know if I'm actually going to come back, because it was bad. But I was admitted to ICU. They stabilized me. I was back home in a week's time. And then I had to go through, the doctor said, that same doctor, he said, he told us that I'll have to do a colonoscope to understand how severely damaged my colon was, if there was anything that was any kind of obstruction that was there, or just to kind of study my colon. And it didn't go well. He couldn't get the scope right through, because he found my colon was loaded with stool, and it was something that he's never seen before. And after that, actually, he just raised his hands. We were shocked, but he raised his hand. He's like, I don't think there's anything much we can do. We cannot really help you. I can't see any solution to this problem, and it's just too complicated. You've got the cholecardia, and then I see the symptoms still there, and now the intestine, and it's only going to get worse, and then it's just one organ to the other. And so we were sent back home with just no hope, no answers, nothing. And anything that was the next 4 months up till June, we were in this dark place, not knowing and what to do, who to turn to, and of course our only hope was like, and this is personally for us, but just praying, that God was just carrying us through, because even throughout our married years and even before that, personally, like we've seen how God had always, like we've hit this wall and He's brought us through. He's always come to our rescue, and all we could do, like in that helpless state, is, God, we need your help. And we were blessed to have the support of our parents, our families, our community to stand with us and pray for us. And but during that time, it was not just, so I was only on liquids. I couldn't eat. I would have eaten like 1 or 2 fruits and a little bit of rice, sometimes not even rice, in the month of April. But towards the end of April, May and June, I was literally only on liquids. And during that time, I lost, I would lose like clumps of hair. I had bald patches in my head and lost my hair. I developed a cyst on my back, which was really bad. And I could see, like, my nails would break off, and I could see that. I would lose so much of weight. I lost a lot of weight. I look like skin and bone.
You said this is just a year back.
Yeah, just a year back.
Just June, in the month of June is when you're
May, June,
the way you were, and it's been like a year now, and so I'm just because now when we look at you, and when our friends are looking at you, you look much healthier. Your hair looks so pretty and curly. So it's just a year back,
In fact, around this time last year, all of this, and and so I lost so much of weight, and literally, like, it was just hollow and bones everywhere. And then, like, the beginning of June, I was only on, and during that time, it was just like a lot of pain. But there were like few days where I would have like little to less pain, but more days of excruciating pain. And by the beginning of June, it got really, really bad. Like, it's not June, actually. It was July. I'm sorry. Yeah, not June. It was July. So from March right up till July. So the beginning of July, I was only on the bed. I could not get out of bed. I couldn't, like, I remember my mom or Saji would come to the room and just, even if they would bring me like a bowl of lentil soup or like anything, I would have like 2 spoons and just throw up. I didn't even have strength to go to the washroom. I didn't have strength to do anything, like, change my clothes, or whether it was just sitting up straight or walking. I couldn't walk. Like, if I had to get out of bed, I was like bent over, like literally bent over, because if I had to stay erect, I could not breathe. And just taking every step was just anguish, so much of anguish and pain. And I think, like, in those moments, it was just really dark. And I thought, okay, this time I said, God, I'm ready to. If you're taking me now, please take me, but I cannot take one more day of this pain. A lot of tears, and what was hard was, even like for me, especially to see, like, my family, my husband, my kids, my parents who were there with us, see me in this condition. I could see how it was breaking them too, and to know that there was no one who could help us. But again, like I said, God never has forsaken us, never left us, and He sent help through this very sweet friend of ours who suggested this doctor, a very, very experienced gastroenterologist in a very reputed hospital, and it was an emergency situation. I got rushed to the hospital, and he attended to me, and there was one more surgeon, and they were really God sent, I should say, because for the first time I felt like, we both felt like were two doctors who could actually understand what I was going through, and they were speaking a language that made sense, right? And and even the investigations and tests that I had to go through, they always gave us a reason for why they were doing what, and trying to figure out, the root cause of this, because they were concerned too, like seeing the condition that I was admitted in. Like, I came in completely malnourished because my body was not able to absorb any nutrients anymore, and I was like literally malnourished, and my vitals were way low, and they were concerned that they thought that they were surprised that no other organ even got affected because it was that bad. But here I was with my tummy this big, like I'm the skinny person, like I'm just skin and bones, and my tummy is this big. And they couldn't understand what's going on, but they did all these tests and everything, and then and they finally understood that they tried their best to avoid a surgery. They knew that we did not want that. They did not want that for me. They tried everything possible within their power to avoid the surgery, but when nothing seemed to work, and I was only on the glucose, I could not go back home because I would not be able to eat again. So they were like, okay, Jane, the only option is for us to do an ileostomy. And ileostomy is
so basically, maybe I'll just share that part of the story. And it was quite traumatic, like even for her and even for me, because we are here, like, and we don't know anything. We don't know about what kind of surgery and what could help. Doctors are also trying to see what is the best solution to kind of bring her out of that. And then they suggested the surgery called ileostomy. Ileostomy is so basically her large intestine was completely loaded, and then they were not able to kind of empty that, and they couldn't do a surgery at that time and empty it because her body was weak. And if they would have operated her, that operation would have been a very major, and it would create a shock, and then anything could have happened. So they suggested something else. What they did was they did something called ileostomy. So ileostomy, basically, when we eat the food, it goes into our small intestine and then goes into our large intestine. So they made an opening through her small intestine here, and so a part of her intestine is out, and then that's attached to a bag. So basically, it's like traffic that was going to the large being now diverted. So now which comes into a bag. So basically, that's the procedure that they did. So that and then they also kind of
2 bags initially. I had 2 bags.
There was 2 bags. One,
they had made a cutting here too.
Yeah. So when they did the surgery, so basically they had to do 2 cuts, 1 cut here and 1 cut in the middle. And then while she was after she came back from surgery, she also had a lot of cold and cough issues, and because of her coughing, the stitches was just coming out, and that created another complication, and they had to put another bag there to collect the fluid that was coming from that injury. So that's basically what it is. So right now she has that bag, which needs to be changed. Ideally, it needs to be changed every once in a week. But her large bowl is still loaded, and it is not completely empty, I would say. And then she's also developed hernia, because of which there's leakage that happens. So we have to sometimes change the bag, like more than once in a week. So that's the whole. Just to give you a gist of the surgery, the ileostomy, the surgery that was conducted on her. I also want to know, Jane, like, yes, of course, that procedure was done, but there was a period before that when you got to know that you're going to get into surgery, and then a period after that where you were so much in pain. And I remember just sitting next to you, and I couldn't even like talk to you because you were not able to talk to me. So yeah, tell us yeah, of course, I mean, you can't explain the, like, the agony and pain, but what was going on in your mind, and what was something that was encouraging you, what was keeping you happy, what was keeping you look forward to the next day, and how were you thinking, what was going on in your mind as you were thinking about your future with the bag and the complications that you will have to have. So can you kind of share that?
Yeah, so just before, when the doctor broke the news to us saying that I would have to undergo the surgery, I wasn't prepared for it at all. I thought this is going to be the end. This is the end of me, the end of the world. I couldn't imagine when the doctor described it, with the bag attached to my abdomen, and the cleaning process and all of that was just, it was just gibberish. It was just like I couldn't even make sense of anything. And honestly, I was just so much in pain, and the weakness that I was going through was like, and I wanted to finally start eating again. So I was like, okay, you know what? If this is the only option right now, and I'm in good hands, and the doctors know what they're talking about. God knows what He's doing with me. I'm just gonna surrender this. I'm just gonna, go with the flow. So, but I thought I was like mentally prepared for this operation. I told myself many things, and of course, my family, my parents and such, some of our friends from church, all of them just speaking, and a lot of my friends, also my friend circle, some ladies who I'm close to, like, they would just speak these words of encouragement and faith into me. And I was like, okay, let's do this. But when it finally happened, and I came to my senses out of surgery on the hospital bed, and see this bag, and the nurse comes and she's cleaning up, and I was just, I was a mess inside. I was just weeping like a little child. I was just crying because I couldn't imagine. If you have to understand, like, it's like it my life was changed in a lot of ways. Like, things that I used to do once, I would not be able to do it the same way again, and it's so much to take in. And I thought, how could I walk with this thing, like live with this for however long I have to? I mean, I can't imagine myself, and I'm a person who's very, very particular about, cleanliness, things being in order, things being in place, and stuff like that. And then to see this, like, every time, it's just too much for me to. I would just keep crying on the bed. But again, I think God, whatever happens to you, it, again, like I said, doesn't happen by chance. And I think God just kind of started showing me my perspective towards the pain, and towards, this, what I went through, slowly started changing as I started reading God's word at the Bible, and I started talking, and I started seeing, God started showing me how much of support and love, like, I could feel His love, I could experience the depth of His love through my husband, through my parents, my children, my family, whether it's my brother, my sister, our friends. Like, I was just flooded. I was overwhelmed with the love that I was receiving. And for the first couple of days, even after we got discharged from hospital, after many days, the doctors had told, they showed Saju how it all needs to be done, because it was, again, you need to understand, this was not a normal ileostomy operation, since the lump was still there in my, like Saju said, right? Like, there was a stool, that hardened stool was still there. So I had to go through an irrigation every second day. Irrigation is a process where the IV tube is connected to my to the bag, and oil or water is flushed in, and then since I stopped passing from below completely. It was during this time that a little of the stool would the idea was the doctors were hoping it would just kind of slowly melt the stool, and then it would get. But it was just a very complicated, a very messy process, and my husband was like with their doing all of that, especially not just the cleaning. For the first couple of days, I couldn't even see my own bag. I was just not able to, and he was doing that for me and cleaning and changing my bag, and it was just kind of I think God just kept showing me how blessed I am to have these special people who He has placed in my life, like my lifeline. My husband in those days, those months, he was my lifeline. My parents were my lifeline. I think without them, those initial days, I don't think I would have been able to survive the way, like I know Saju said that I handled it all really strong, and I was like, but I don't think I would have. It's because God placed them in my life, and the prayers of my family, my friends, a faith community, not just here in Mumbai, but even in other countries, in the US and other places. Like I was surrounded by people praying for me. So that was what brought me through. That was what helped me to, like, God kept me, He sustained me, and He held me through all of that. Of course, I gradually, Saju taught me how I need to start cleaning the bag and doing various things. But you have to understand that till November, I was still in pain, because this irrigation process was, again, very, very painful. So even though I was able to start eating again, and that's another thing I was just thanking God for, like, I can at least eat now. It doesn't matter that I have all these things, at least I can put food in my mouth. And every morsel I would eat, I would just be so grateful for that, right? Even if it was like lentils and rice, or just, simple food. But I wasn't gaining weight up till November because of, it was just all of this complicated procedures involved. And it was only after that I slowly, the doctors noticed that I've started gaining a little bit of weight. I can start doing things. I was completely incapacitated, immobilized. I couldn't do anything after I was out of hospital. I found it very hard. The wounds were so painful. It wasn't healing fast enough because my body was so malnourished. So it was taking a lot of time to heal. But when it finally started healing, and I was able to slowly gain weight and do things that, like, normal things around the house that I couldn't do before, I was just even my doctors were pretty amazed that I was doing so well, like physically, emotionally, mentally. Did I go through dark moments and moments where I felt like I could give up? Yeah, I did go through dark moments. I went through a lot of because when that pain is your companion throughout, more than anything, like it's just constantly there. It's so difficult to, you feel helpless that you can't be there for your children in the way you used to as a mother. You can't be there as a wife for for my husband, do what I would do, and like in serving and doing this different things. But I think one thing that helped me was like just for Saju, giving me that space and just letting me be, loving me unconditionally. Like and I say the word unconditionally because it's not easy to love someone when it's just you're such a mess. But to experience that love and to experience that care, because for him being that caregiver hasn't been easy too, because he goes through, he's suffering equally with me. It might not be the physical pain, but a lot of emotional pain. But to be able to stand together, be with each other, and honest about how we feel, to have like my parents to be there, make sure things are moving in our house, and speaking words of truth and faith into me, and our friends speaking words of life and prayer for me. All of that, I think, is what kind of really, and I want to say that, like, and I know many of us can say this, that you see there's this frame in our house that says, you grow through what you go through. If not for the pain and suffering, all these qualities of like you being strong and patient and courageous and compassionate and all of that that is not built up till you walk through that pain and suffering. And I want to mention that, like, the Bible talks about that. When you talk about pain and suffering, it talks about it how it's compared to a gold being refined. And I want to say this because that is something that also gave me a very different perspective to the pain that I was going through. And when Saju said that, like, I was able to stay positive, or I was able to, I don't think I would have been able to if not for God's word. So it changed a lot of my perspective to the way I was seeing pain. So it talks about, a lot of places in the Bible talks about pain being compared to gold being refined. And I did a little bit of, I wanted to study about that a little bit more. And the Egyptians, they were they were people who, they were actually the ones who actually came out with these processes of refining gold, because they had so many things in place. They knew how it's done, and it was done almost to perfection. And there were many steps involved. First is you find the gold. Like, the gold has to be dug out of the earth, or it has to be mined out through the alluvial deposits. And then the sand and the dirt is washed off till only that dense gold particles remains, right? It's filtered out. After that, the particles are crushed. It's crushed, and then I'm sure we all know this, but the gold is then burnt. The waste is burnt off. The dross and everything that's on these gold pieces, they're burnt off. And then the gold is put into a clay vessel, and that clay vessel is, along with the gold, there are additional materials that's put into this vessel that helps with the purification process. And the clay vessel is sealed, and it's put into this fire for like 5 to 6 days till the fume dies out, okay, and the vessel is removed. And when the gold is taken out, it's almost, so modern scientists would say that process that the Egyptians used to follow, without the modern technology or chemical interventions and all of that process was almost like 93% pure gold that was left out. So the reason I'm bringing this point out is, like, we don't like going through that fire. It's not a pleasant experience. It's not a fun experience. Not something that will make us happy. It's not. It will crush you. It will break you. But to remember that even when you're going through that heat, like for me personally, God would just keep reminding me that He's refining me as gold. He's shaping me and molding me into something new, making me new, brand new. And this is, you cannot avoid. I think I read this phrase somewhere that iron, unless it's beaten, it cannot be shaped into a sword. Something along that line. I'm not saying it perfectly, but that's how, like, you see these beautiful things, like, but it is broken and shaped and molded, and it's gone. It takes it. You go through fire.
So I think what you're saying is that we all do go through, like, the life that we have on earth. It is a life of suffering. It's a life of pain.
Yeah.
And that's one side of the story.
Yeah.
But then when we look at it from the perspective of the purpose for which we were created, like, we think about the one who created us. And what you're saying is that on the other side, there is also this process where as we go through suffering, as we go through pain, that the one who created us is also perfecting us, is also refining us.
Yes.
To become better human beings, to become mature, and learning to handle things, and like they say, tough situations make us even more tougher men and women. So yeah, I mean, just that story is really, like, encouraging, even when the Bible talks about gold refined. So yeah, I mean, that's so encouraging to hear, what you've gone through and I have gone through. But quite often when we share our stories, people ask about our boys, like, how did they handle? So yeah, so just to give you an idea, we have two boys, Jairus, who was 14-year-old, Amazia was 10-year-old, and with what Jane went through, I went through, but even our boys went through tough times. So Jane, what would you say? How do you say that now that you've had enough time to talk to them, how do you say that you think the boys handled all this? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, what helped them, become bitter about the experiences that their mom was going through? So what are your thoughts on that? Like, what would you say?
Yeah, it was really hard initially, because I think up to last year they saw, even though I was in and out of hospital, I would just kind of, it was that place where, okay, I've been knocked off and I'm back on my feet, I'm knocked off and back, and things would go, as normal. But this time it was just, they saw that it was just taking a lot of time, because even before the surgery could see me in so much pain. Even after surgery, it was constant pain, and like for me not being able to be there completely with them, like as we homeschool, I'm so much involved, with their lessons and doing different things, and all of that changed. So, if you ask me whether they got bitter over it all, I think it was one thing for us to, they would hear us speak a lot of positive things in our home about how our journey on this earth, it is not just about happiness and joy and all of that. That is there, but there are moments of grief and suffering and pain, and how what kind of perspective do we need to have towards those difficult, hard moments as well. And we've had those conversations before, but but I think like last year, it was more, the reality was more shocking for them, more hard for them to take it all in. And when I think for me and Saju, when we had this conversation after I came home from hospital, a couple of days after we came home from hospital, sitting together, and he called them, and I was not even showing them. They didn't even see this bag and this, my whole abdomen, and that's the scars that were there and all of that. It was just, I didn't want them to see that. It was just I thought they would not be able to. I didn't want their minds to be scarred, but I think Saju very beautifully, he put it, saying that, they need to see all, like, and we took their permission. We asked them, do you want to see this? And Saju wanted to show them what's going on with my and he showed them everything, and they saw that, and it was yeah, I wouldn't say it shook them up, but they were like, they couldn't understand how I could live with this now. It was just so much. It's like our mother now is not going to be, she has this for the rest of how much ever time. So we had to ask some hard questions and I think it was for them to acknowledge that it was hard for them. It's not been easy, and for them to acknowledge that they do feel this ache and they wish things were not as it was right now. But yet they told us, remember, Mom, Dad, like, yeah, y'all used to tell us about this. I mean, they've seen it to some extent before that, but not like to this degree. But they're like, we understand that, for them to say words like God is still good to us because He has given us. You would have not been there right now. You were so bad, Mama. We are happy that you're still alive and you're with us. So for them to be so grateful to see God's goodness through it all is just, and even those scars, like we were telling them like how scars it speaks of God's goodness and faithfulness to us. It speaks of hope. It speaks of perseverance. It speaks of endurance. It speaks of how something beautiful can be made out of ashes. It's so yeah, and for them to see that we are still held together as a family. God has been holding us and He's been providing for us. Like it is not it is very like it's a lot of I think just for them to see that God has been our provider and He's been good in so many ways. For us together sit as a family and talk about what are the blessings that we see right now, I think that has changed a lot of the ways they see things. Like, okay, we are thankful for this, we are thankful for this, God has given us this, God has given us that. So I think that has helped a lot.
Cool. So with that, like, it's not that it's over for us, just the story and Jane's journey continues. So basically we will have to do a couple of more surgeries because she's got a hernia that needs to be taken off. We have to think of the possibility, if there is a possibility, to take the bag in, like whether she can be normal again. So we might have to do some more procedures, some more surgeries. So it's going to be hard and difficult, lots of ups and downs. So it's not ending here for us, but we are hoping that someday, things will be totally perfect for us, not perfect in a sense, no suffering, no pain, maybe in a different form, but we are hoping that this will go and we'll come out of it. So again, just to sum it up and just to conclude our conversation, I just want to once again highlight a couple of things that you spoke about, like where as you go through pain, as you go through suffering, you can add, I'm just kind of saying things that I heard and that helped you. One is for us to have a very strong faith in God, knowing that He is sovereign, ultimately that He is in control, and He knows what He is doing, and then that He is refining us through all that process. So I think number one is that.
And He's still good.
And He's still good and He's still faithful. Just continue to trust Him and not doubt Him or become angry or upset with life.
I mean, we can doubt. Yeah. We can have those questions.
But not to be upset with life, bitter or with life. So that's one thing. Second, I hear is also that the importance of relationship. You mentioned about the relationship that you shared with me or with the children, with our parents, and therefore it's so important. It's so important to invest in our relationship, right? A lot of the times we have great relationship, we have our spouses, but we just don't give enough time to each other. It's moments like these when things get tougher is that our relationship comes together, and therefore it's important that we invest in those relationships because that helps. And third, what I hear from you is, of course we have family, we have our spouses and fathers and brothers and sisters, but we also have a larger community of people,
beyond the family.
beyond our family, where from where we draw support, where we draw our strength, where their words of encouragement helps us to deal with the struggles that we go through. So investing in community, being part of a healthy community, is so important. Just to be together. I think that's the way we are made. God didn't make us to live lonely lives. We are made to be part of communities, and therefore we need to see the importance of being part of those communities and stick to it, so that when time comes, when there are moments of despair and agony and struggles, that we can stand together, hold each other's hand, and march and move together. So I just heard those. Anything else that you want to add? And then maybe we can just end this video. Anything else? Maybe last words that you want to share. It's okay if you don't have anything.
I mean, I spoke everything.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jane. Thanks for being willing to do this. I hope people who are listening to this video, this YouTube, have been encouraged. So we'll do this more often. Yeah. Yeah, you want to share something?
He said last words.
Oh.
Right.
You have last words. Okay.
Just last words.
Go ahead.
You're gonna edit this part, right? You're gonna chop it.
Go for it.
No. Is that you?
I didn't say last words.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to say at the end that not to be ashamed of your story. I think a lot of times you're afraid about, if I have to say what I have to say, is how's everyone going to perceive me, or what are people going to think, or but I think our stories are all so unique, and it's got to do more than us, and our stories matter, and if it means even giving, our stories giving hope for one person out there who needs to hear, that he needs to hear, find hope in this hopeless situation. I think it matters, and to have a different perspective than the normal, everyday, ordinary person would have towards everything that they go through. I think it does make a difference. So, I think it's good to just share a story, and I'm grateful for this space that we have where I could share my story. So thank you for that.
Thank you. So with that we bring this conversation to an end, and we will do a lot more. We'll probably think about different topics like marriage, parenting, homeschooling. Might also invite some other friends. So if you like what you heard and this was encouraging, please do put a comment and let us know what you thought about it, what you think, what and maybe also share your story, maybe briefly. We would love to hear your story. So please go ahead and share your story and tell us what are things that help you cope up with pain and struggle. So we would love to hear that. We will definitely read all your comments. Subscribe to the channel, because we will post more videos like these. So if you want to listen to more videos like these, so you have to subscribe so that you get notification, or you can see it in your YouTube app. Like the video, and most importantly, share it. So this, we're putting out our story for you guys, and if you think that someone who will benefit from listening to this story, and that will help them to think about their life and make some improvements, make some changes that will help them cope up with difficult times, you should share it with that person. Okay, so that's it from us, and we will see you again. Hope you have a wonderful day, and bye.
Bye.